Hey, 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 and welcome to this week's show. And guess what we have rolling out for you this week? We are going to take you on a journey to the flow of what it takes through the law of attraction to have money, success, and how to live a legacy life. So you will have no other than moi, all the way from Indonesia, Bali, sitting in my hotel room here in Nusa Dua. And I have to say, it's a really big reality check, speaking of money, because this is a reflection of someone who obviously had a lot of money, but then when times were tough and COVID hit back in 2020, then what happened to our beautiful island in Bali, Indonesia? Well, they suffered. They rely completely on tourism. So I sit here in a five-star hotel that is more like a ghost town. They have elements to the hotel that are just not quite working properly, but I can see past the little things that can be mechanically fixed with ease, flow, and grace. But the bedrooms are absolutely luxurious. The views are astounding. They have three swimming pools, an upstairs rooftop bar, and wait for it, pool, and three restaurants. And I haven't even got halfway around this place. I could literally live here and not walk out the front, and I would have plenty to do just in exploring every floor. But my point is that someone with a lot of money suddenly, completely, their life changed. And what do you do when life does hand you situations that may lead you into poverty? Or what do you do when you're in a situation where you may not find that you are even getting the traction that you deserve or making money? What is the law of money and how are people really manifesting it? Is there a secret? So sit back, get yourself a drink, relax, and stay tuned for this episode. Well, hello, and it is so fabulous to be here with you all the way from the beautiful Nusa Dua of Bali, Indonesia. And I've been traveling all around. I have been on a journey, and that journey has been a very spiritual path. And somehow or rather, I knew it was calling. But how did I know that this was calling me? How did I know amidst very much loved and caring family who said to me, you can't do this alone? Why would you go out into a country all by yourself? I even had some of the most heebie jeebie stories told to me, and yet I already had my resolve. And this is really the first part of the topic that I would like to talk to you about today because your life is your own. Nobody else can live it for you. So, the first key to really living your legacy life is to know that when you listen and you learn how to listen in to your soul, and you can go into that quieter space so that you are present, that is when you are ripe to manifest. So let's go through now what it's going to take for you to upgrade and why it's going to require a really deep upgrading, because it's not just about you going to school and learning a new language or learning a new strategy, but it's about you working on yourself first. And I want to tell you that my biggest life transformation, hands down, without a doubt, was done when I was at the lowest ebb of my life, but when I was able to completely turn my life around through NLP back in 2006. Now, this was a very, very hard time for me because my marriage had broken down. I had 3 young children, and I had been living in a black hole for a long, long time. But whilst I saw that as a place and a space that was really grim, and it was like there was no light at the end of the tunnel, I was just living day to day, struggling to get out of bed. I was diagnosed with postpartum, postnatal depression after having my children. But really, when it comes down to it, we know in our field that all of these diagnoses are really names that doctors have come up with so that they can categorize, so they can medically help, and so they can get an understanding of what they're dealing with. But really, if I looked at, because when you look at the cause of what's happening, so for example, if you're looking at your money, and you're feeling like it's just either going through your fingers, you don't have enough of it, you just don't seem to be able to call it in. It's not just about bad luck in your life and you not given a lucky break. It's about some deep DNA emotional structure that has happened at a very, very soul level. And it may not even be around money. It may be around your self-worth, because self-worth and self-love are by far the most attached to money, along with gratitude and along with living your why. So, if I could go back to that younger version of me, God only knows what I could have done if I could have just waved a magic wand and gone back in time and looked at how much, I love my children so much. And I was that nurturing mother who was really deeply overprotective and always focused on their health and their well-being, right? But I wasn't living and enjoying them because I was too busy being stressed. I was depressed. I was living this desolate life, which I had no idea what was going on. But all I know is I didn't want to go out. I didn't really feel like getting dressed and getting on with my life. But I didn't really realize that this was one of the biggest gifts that had ever been given to me. And what it was about a calling. It was about a deep calling that was upon my life, and one that was really hinting me to make a change and recreate my world so that I could honor the path that I was on and step into my zone of genius. So now I wonder if you can just sit back and think for a moment, what's not working in your life? What are some of the biggest struggles that are going on for you? Now, of course, because, I have a legacy vision, and my legacy vision is all around healing, frequency, upgrades, energetic, releasing trauma, getting rid of all of those old stories and all of those old baggages so that you're not constantly playing the same patterns over and over and over. Now, this doesn't mean to say that you'll ever be perfect, because, look, I healed myself way back in 2006, and there's always a new level. There's always the next thing that you have to peel away. But, one of probably the biggest next level blows that I had, like big blows to my life. Like I had that one in my 30s, living in that black space, and then recognizing when I found NLP. And it's interesting how the universe will call you when you listen. But what if you're too busy? What if your mind is just so rampant with all of the day-to-day stuff that all you can think about is what's not going on right for you? You know, this is so typical, you guys, right? To be focused on what's not working. But guess what? If you are focused on what's not working, you are going to attract more of that what's not working. So it's time to break that pattern. It's time to level up. And what I did was when I went into NLP, even 12 months before I'd discovered NLP, I didn't even know what NLP was. I'd never heard about it in my life. But I remember one of the things that came with the darkness I was going through at the time and the depression and that ongoing anxiety and panic that I would feel is that you wouldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep when I was supposed to sleep, and then I'd want to sleep when I wasn't supposed to sleep. So it's interesting how life does that to you. And yet sometimes we never wake up to what is actually going on. So one night I got up and I went downstairs and I turned on the television and I saw this big 6 foot something man strutting around on the stage. And he was so convicted. He was so powerful. His voice had a vibrational energy, you guys, that rose me up from within. I was like at a different decibel of my frequency just by hearing his voice, right? I didn't know who the heck he was, but I wanted whatever he had. And maybe I couldn't even hear or digest the words coming out of his mouth. But what does the subconscious pick up on? It picks up on energy. He had posture. He had that feeling in his body. He had that voice, that tone of voice that says, I'm in control. I am certain. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. And I wanted what he was delivering. And I remember getting on my phone at 3 a.m. and calling this number, forgetting that firstly, it's America. Secondly, that it's a different time zone. And thirdly, that nobody was going to answer my call because I didn't have the correct coding. So I remember feeling so much like, like that child, when you're a child, you want something so badly and you wish you could have it, but you can't. And that kind of can't moment kind of like just went in, sunk in, until eventually I just let it go. That's what I did. I just let it go. Now, speaking of letting go, the next part of my journey, so just remembering that little incident at 3 a.m. for me, right? Now, 6 months fast forward into the future, and there was a couple of things that had played out in my life where both my husband and I knew that our marriage was over. It was beyond repair. We both knew it. We were both like really, really good people. But the thing was that our friends loved us. We were the story of the two people that kind of like we came out of the womb together. It was almost like we were our friends that everybody relied on. We hosted parties. We were just that couple that everybody thought we were absolutely tied and sewn at the soul. And that's kind of how it was in a way, because we had not really become our own people, because we'd met when we were very young. I fell in love with him when I was like 14 years old. And if anything, he kind of played hard to get and he pulled back from me, and that made me chase him more. And speaking of letting go, I can remember having this moment where I just, after a long time, being a young teenage girl, 15, 16 years old, I kind of like just let it go. I let the fact that I'd been in love with him for so long, totally had stars in my eyes, and I just released it. And do you know, in that moment of release, something very strange happened. What do you think happened? Well, guys, in case you don't know, it's the law of attraction. He actually started noticing me. And that's when we came back together. Okay. And so now, as I'm kind of piecing some things together, you now have the story of me at 3 in the morning. That was like fast forward probably 13 years later, after, we'd had some courtship, marriage, and all the things, and our 3 children. And then I had another moment where I knew I couldn't do it anymore, where I knew that it was almost going to be that I was dying inside. My spirit was dying, and we couldn't get the right help. We just didn't have the right resources. And I know from very word go that even if we were not compatible, we were meant to be, because everything is meant to be, right? So, basically after that, I had that moment where things couldn't get any worse. It's like, how far does a person have to go before they go, I give up? I give up. But is it really giving up? What I discovered is I never give up on anything, right? What it's called is surrender. So when you know how to surrender, that is one of the most powerful things in the law of attraction. Now, no one tells you this. No one says that, hey, have you actually surrendered to being passionately detached from the outcome? Because that is a huge piece. So, so many things didn't make sense. And one of the things that I had done is I had taken up a Bachelor of Ministries, thinking that that was going to save my life or save my marriage or do something. But in that time when I was trying and trying and trying, and I was grinding, nothing was actually working. And one of the things that didn't seem to work was when I did a Bachelor of Ministries. And that just kind of made everything even worse, because I felt stupid. I failed theology. I thought, I don't even know how to study. I was really good at all the counselling units, and when it came to pastoral care, I mean, that just seemed to come to me like, whoa, just ease, flow, and grace. But all the written, dry theology, it was like, oh my gosh, I think I'd rather heave ho. So anyways, one day I had this young lady who was magnetically attracted to me, and she was half my age. And I used to think to myself, why is she always wanting to be near me? And that person ended up being a person with the last name Messenger. Now, she was giving a tutorial one day, and I was never really that interested in being her friend, because really I didn't need an adult daughter, and I thought she was too young to be my friend. And she hasn't even lived half the life that I have. So why would we have any common interests? Like, really, to be honest, I had a lot of admiration for her because she was very intelligent. She was also very grown up for her age. And so as time progressed and she gave this tutorial and she announced her name, and I knew her first name, but I never knew her last name was Messenger. And I found myself actually chasing her down the corridor. So she must have done a surrender thing, because I started chasing her now. And I went, hey, hey, saying her name, screaming her name out down the corridor. I said, did you say that your last name is Messenger? And she turns around and like, yeah, like, who cares kind of thing. And I'm like, I'm stoked. There was something that just went boom inside me. And I make a joke. The joke is I married my husband for his last name. So there's that piece of the story. But then as we fast forward, because he'd lost his wife and he was kind of living a very similar life to mine, only, it was same, but it was different. And so when we did come together, it seemed like it was too soon, but actually it couldn't have been soon enough. I think for me at that time, I was so ready to meet this person. And, being a chiropractor, he had wisdom, he had life, he was worldly, he'd lived in Libya for 2 years, he had all these exciting things, but there was just something there that I really connected with. And so, really, fast forward, you guys know that we are today married. But just to go back a bit in time here, he said, I think you ought to do NLP. And I thought, what the hell is NLP? Like it just sounded like three letters that sounded totally like double Dutch. I went in and I did this NLP practitioner's certification, not so I could become a practitioner, but so I could heal my life, so I could get rid of all the baggage. He said to me one night when we went out and had a coffee together, he said, it's okay. I asked him, how much is it? He was setting it all up for me. And he said, don't worry about that. He knew I didn't have the money. I just kind of walked away from my marriage. So all I had was a suitcase. And so I handed him $50 because all the trainings that I'd been doing were $50, right? It was just a thing. So $50 is what I gave him. And I remember seeing this funny little smirk on his face. And then I wondered. And then, anyway, that was that. And then my life changed. I went in there and it was just life changing. Everything from my perception of how I perceived people that I thought had turned against me and how I was able to turn that around and see where they were coming from, right through to manifesting the home of my dreams, right through to actually releasing some major abuse that had happened to me while I was younger. And, I still remember the feeling of my teacher getting me to stand up and walk through my timeline and actually move through it and find those three significant emotional moments. I can still remember him then asking me to recode and rewire myself by then asking, what did that younger person need? What did I need? When I looked back, I needed love, but I needed self-love. I needed to feel important. And because that self-importance was something that, I just did not perceive, I didn't feel, that became the driver of my very ambitious workaholic kind of a spirit. And, I'd even had during a time in my 20s where I was successful in real estate. And I literally went all in and just went in and became so successful that I didn't know how to stop until I had a nervous breakdown. You see, guys, our subconscious minds don't know the difference between right or wrong. If you're in a place in a space and you're doing something where you need to take notice that something is going to happen unless you change, then you may find yourself hitting a wall. And sometimes hitting that wall can be your greatest blessing ever. In this case, for me, it was about having a nervous breakdown, really just reuniting with myself, finding my inner calm, finding my peace, and taking a break from work. So it's like, that's right, the universe allowed me to have a nervous breakdown so I would take a break. I also noticed that I used to get sick a lot. And getting sick so much, like I was like a crap magnet, was because I didn't have the mindset back then. So I would catch everything. And I was like a magnet to illnesses. But when I think back, those sicknesses were also a message again saying, rest. So, guys, you need to ask yourself the question, what is it that's going on for you right now that you need to see what the higher purpose of it is, right? And you're probably thinking, well, what's this got to do with money? but it's got everything to do with money, because your money is really your frequency, your currency, and that is the driver of what is going to fulfill you. And money should be like the air you breathe, right? It shouldn't have to be something that you go out and hustle and grind for, but when it becomes like the air you breathe, when you come into knowing your why, when you come into knowing, the reason you're doing what you're doing, that's when everything opens up. And when that is a really authentic, true story, it's not just a made up story because all the greats told you to make up a story. Oh, I'm a tired, worn out person, and this and this and this. You hear that all the time, but there's really no story, right? You'll find that even the greatest inventors and people who have invented things, right, there is a story, right, behind what they're doing. Oprah Winfrey has a massive story. The only difference between the people who are successful, rich, and living a legacy life and a person who is not is how you actually deal with it. So this is why there's that saying, life is happening for you. It's not happening to you, it's happening for you, because your body is a GPS. All the things coming to you are that download for you to stop and go, oh, yeah, that's right. That's what I have to do. So it's a wake-up calling. Now, as I move through actually recoding, rewiring, and healing myself, and I still remember the feeling of my teacher just pressing my shoulder. And that was where he recoded me, and also pressing the other shoulder, where he released the anchors and fired and rewired new elements into my life. But I had to learn from them. And what did I learn? I learned that I had to go out into the world and do this for other people. And from that point on, I realized very quickly. Do you remember that 3:00 in the morning wake-up call when I went downstairs, turned on the telly, and there was Anthony Robbins? He was doing NLP. It was Anthony Robbins and it was NLP. And probably not 12 months later, there I was. So what we desire and what we really passionately so really want, and what we surrender and release and let go to, does come about. And that is how it actually comes about. It's through the art of surrender. It's through the art of understanding that every single thing that's happening in your life is that barometer for you to understand. If you are too busy or too stressed, how will you be able to have that peace of mind, to have the ability to hear ideas and then clearly and concisely articulate them? So manifestation, contrary to what all the books came out back in 2002 with The Secret and the shows, they said, put it out there and that's when you're going to manifest. And that's when I felt like there was hope, but it didn't work. But the reason it didn't work is not because they were wrong. It's just that they weren't telling us every single detail. And the details, the devil is in the detail. So the details are about recognizing the gold that has been the patterns plaguing your life. That's the gold. It's about realizing that it has happened to you for a reason and realizing what that higher learning and purpose is. And then it's about releasing it and letting it go, so that you can then bring in a new coding system. And that's when you can revolutionize your life. Now, guys, this is where we fast forward to 2017, where I decided that every powerful modality, methodology that I had needed to be given to the world online. But how was I to find my niche when I was helping so many people? Well, then after a long struggle and again going through so many elements, I discovered that there was one most powerful secret behind the success of the greats. And that is that they did know their why, they did have a very concise vision, and they were clear to do it. One of the clearances that I'd done in the more recent chapters of my life is that I cleared my womb, because your womb, and even a man, because I help men as well, I've got men in my container, you come from the womb. So therefore, you are part of the DNA of your mother. And that womb is holding the imprints. It's mainly the sexuality, but it is the imprints of your drive, your sex drive. And your sex drive is very much a part of your success drive, right? And when you know how to channel your sexuality, when you know how to heal the masculine energy, and this goes for both guys and girls, when you can heal the masculine, dominating, grinding and hustling nature, and the feminine part of, I guess, being more inactivity, if you will. But awakening the feminine is about guys and girls being able to receive. And in order to receive, you must really conceive. Conceive. And conceiving means allowing that to come into you. If you conceive, if a woman conceives a child, she conceives it because it's been placed into her body. So when you go into that surrender and that beautiful feminine flow of just being present, because that's the feminine. The feminine is all about the flow of standing and being grounded in your power. And the masculine is about the activation. And when you can get those two to dance together, that's when you can really understand the law of attracting money, success, and living your legacy life. So what's next? Where to now? Okay, so now let me just give you some inspiration of what is the first step for you now to go forward to live your legacy life. Now, I do speak to a lot of people who are leading the way. So whatever you are leading the way in, know that you really, the more authentic you can be, the more of yourself you can be, the more aligned with your own blueprint you will be, and the more higher your vibration and frequency through the healing that we do and we give, the greater you will be. When you can actually write down what you want and set it out. I used to be a now person. Everything had to happen now. But when I think about it, if you don't give enough time for the universe to prepare it for you, you might end up with something thrown at you. E.g., you don't want to land up with the wrong person because you simply were in a hurry to meet them. Okay? You don't want to be investing in the wrong thing because you were in a hurry. You've got to make sure you are crystal clear, even if you're not a visionary. What is it that you truly desire? What does your legacy life look like? Where are you? Are you on a tropical beach with a laptop? Are you perhaps in an office that is vogue? Or maybe you are sitting by a window overlooking a beautiful, lush park. You know, where's the environment? How do you feel inside that environment? What is the legacy that you are providing that other people are really wanting because you have such a beautiful energy? And then, go into those sounds because, sound healing, sounds of when you are feeling that high vibration, when you put sound into it, right? Beautiful healing sounds, flutes, drums, all those kinds of elements. That's when that sound vibration, the sound healing can form a big part of what you're doing, even if you listen to some beautiful soft music. So, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? And then write all this down. What are you feeling? What does it feel like? But then comes the $64 million question. Write down in your journal, why? Why do I want this? Now, this is going to lead you to your biggest legacy. Because when you write it down, you might find that something comes up like, oh, because I just want to feel important. But obviously, that's not it. So, what do? You ask why again. Why do you want to feel important? Oh, because then I would feel like I have more confidence. Why do you want to have more confidence? Oh, because then I would feel like I was more connected with people. Why do you want to be connected with people? Because I don't want to be left out. I don't want to feel like the black sheep. I don't want to struggle. Now, as soon as you start moving into that area, that's when you're striking gold. And what made you feel like the black sheep? What made you feel disconnected or different? And that's when you go really deep. That's when you might find things come up from your past. Like for me, the grade 3 teacher I had, where, it may not sound like a disaster, but she called me a daydreamer, and then all the kids called me a daydreamer. And I almost can remember that vividly, like it's echoing in my mind today. So that left a very firm imprint on my DNA. But also, what about the fact that because I didn't feel important, I allowed myself to be abused by people. I allowed myself to be put into positions that put me into very critical and serious situations. And I am grateful for those serious situations because that's also been a driver for me to be the person I am today. And so when I recognize that I make a stand for the world, that they have to stand up and be counted and know that they have a zone of genius and they are to activate their voice, stand in their power and stand for what they believe. That's where that becomes the conviction. So do you see what I'm doing here, guys? So that why of yours, go deep, go really deep, write it all down on paper. And when you get to that bottom part, that's your boom, 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 drum roll. And that's when, you know what you do? If you haven't healed it, go out, heal it. Decree it that I dissolve, clear, and release it. But before you do that, write down in your journal, what did I learn from this? You could do it this way just by listening into this podcast. What can I learn from what really wounded me? What can I learn? How far back does this deep wound go? Does it go back to my childhood, or does it go back to even before me and to generations? Just let the answers drop. Don't overthink it. Just write them all down. I was 7, or it was before I was born. Just understand it. What did you learn from it? Once you understand what you learned from it, that's when the universe goes, okay, you've got this now. So with that learning in that moment, you can then rise, and then you can now take that learning and go, right, this is a big part of my why. I am going to build my legacy life. I am going to create a service for people that is going to heal them, transform them, and lead them into their zone of genius, says Terry Messenger. That's what I do, right? I'm called to do that, and that's why I am called to do it. When you can stand your ground and you can do that too, that's when everything changes. And then the call to attracting money, success, and the legacy is going to be so much easier. Let me tell you, you will be so disappointed and disillusioned if you try to do this on top of a lifetime filled with issues. And even worse, if it's lineages and lineages ago, you could be dealing with thousands of years worth of a bad blueprint around your money, your success, and your freedom. So once you've done this, that's when you call in your legacy. What are you doing? What does that look like? See yourself in bright color. What do you hear? Is it the shamanic drums? Is it flutes? Is it water? Maybe you hear someone speaking to you, telling you how awesome you are. And then to experience it. Go in and feel it inside you, and write it down too. What does it feel like to be rich? Like, what does that money feel like? Where do you feel it inside you? Is it right in that space inside your chakra, in the very top of your stomach? Place your hand there. Maybe it's on your chest. Maybe it's in your heart. Maybe it's in your head. There's no right or wrong answer. Just sense where you feel the abundance. Where is it? Feel the abundance. Then ask yourself, what are you doing that has really worked successfully? What did you do? And just open yourself up and say, I am open to hearing exactly what has created my success. And just allow that to come. And then as you trust and have faith that that will come, then what are you doing that's living your legacy life? Are you traveling? Are you set up in a home for your family that's very specific? Are you living life according to your own time so that you own your own time? Or maybe you're working for somebody else, or you're a contributor. It doesn't matter, but it's your legacy life. What does it mean to you to have and to be living that legacy life? With that money, because let's face it, if money's coming, it wants to know what you're going to do. It wants to be looked after. It's like the queen and king, right? I'll come to you if I know you will either invest divinely in me, or you will take such good care of me, you will be wise. Say, I am wise with money. Decree it. Say, I decree and declare I am wise with money. Take a deep breath in, because the breath of life, as you are in your future, feeling that money in abundance. Now just allow yourself to dream big of what you are going to do with this. How are you going to make your money multiply? Now, if it is because it's going to multiply within your own self-growth, then that is going to be an eternal investment. If it is towards your business or towards a excellent, perhaps, investment where it's going to grow exponentially, just see that. Notice what you are doing with that money that gives money a good reason to come to you. Notice that you living your legacy, what that does for other people. It's not just about being selfish and all to yourself, but what is it doing for the world? What are you doing for your people? Do you have your why? And now, as you envisage this of what you are doing with your blessings, I want you to decree and declare and even write it down. I am completely respecting my life, the money and the service I provide that creates millions. I am a master of money, and money is safe with me. I receive genius downloads that helps me grow and grow exponentially in my legacy. How does this feel, guys? Are you feeling that within you? Are you feeling it in your chest? Are you feeling it in your solar plexus, in your stomach? Where are you feeling it? And as you feel into it, just allow the currency and frequency to rise. But imagine the sound. There's a sound of music, and it's playing at this tone and decibels, whether it's slightly high pitched, whether it's got a nice humdrum tone in the background, whether there's a flute in the distance. And just let the harmonics just align your frequency with this. And then take in a deep breath in through your nose and breathe out. And as you cast that out to your future self, merge back to where you are in the present. Come back into the here and now. And let's look at what you can do as your first step now to completely building your empire. Okay, so would you like to know how to take the next step? The next step is you may want to bring your legacy onto my show. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to my show, make sure you do and tell it to your friends, because we are always bringing some ingenious content every single week. But if you are ready to go really, really deep with your zone of genius, you can contact me so we can absolutely go through all of those teachings and trainings and high energy frequencies and put you right here on the red carpet where you can really expound your most powerful message. So how can you do that? You can reach me by my website or find the link in this chat. You can also go to my bio on social media and you will find me. And you can even find the podcast launching pad in my bio to click in to an appointment so you can come on this show. And you will get all backstage grooming. You will get backstage. You will be in a vortex where we will actually harness you in creating your message and your magic and your zone of genius and taking you through this beautiful formula and launching your service, your legacy on this show. And everybody watching is going to know, everybody listening, should I say, is going to know that you are getting the best of the best in their field. So keep watching, keep sharing, keep playing, and remember, if you are looking for a powerful transformation to live your legacy life, I am just a click away. So go ahead and click in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next program. See you soon.